All right, episode 12, Startup Nation. We got Kailey here and Nate, and we are going to talk about what we've talked about a bunch of times, but I want you to hear from the horse's mouth per se when it comes to the amount of work it requires to start up a business. And I'm not just saying start up in the first few months. I'm saying, to be honest with you, probably the first couple of years. So listen in. Episode 12, please share, subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff, but we want to paint a very realistic picture on today's episode on what it looks like to start up a business. Listen in.
Yeah.
All right, so Kailey, I know a little bit about the story, probably not as much as I actually want to know. I've just heard stories of when you guys started Hardcore Fitness. Kailey is the owner of Hardcore Fitness. You've probably heard that on a previous episode. 0 members to 650 members in the first 2 years-ish. She came from being a trainer and having very, very little business experience to saying, hey, here you go. Here's a nice, fun rent. You got to pay every month, and you better build this business. And if you don't, they're gonna have problems. And so she's gonna tell a little bit about her story when it came to the amount of work it required, the amount of hours she put in, the amount of frustration, probably how that took away from your personal time and relationships and family and all that fun stuff. So I'll let you have the floor here.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have a really strong work ethic, and that's just something I strive on. I've had it, I think, like my whole life. I've gotten it from my grandpa, from my mom, from my dad. But you don't really know the work you're supposed to put in until you really start a business. Like I said, I've always worked really hard at everything that I do, but starting the gym was a huge, it's a good rude awakening of like, okay, like you have no choice but to put in the time. I mean, I lived in San Diego. We opened the gym in North County, which is like 40-minute drive. I was paying a really nice $900 rent for like 4 years, so I was determined to try to keep that just because, in San Diego. So like I was going to make the commute. That was my goal. That lasted about, I would say maybe a month of opening, and we weren't even open yet, but with all the construction and everything we had to put into with the pre-sales and everything you had to do to start the business, start the gym, I finally just said, you know what, I can't do this because, we had to be there super early in the day. We wouldn't leave till 8, 9 o'clock at night, if not longer, with just painting walls and basically doing everything ourselves because we didn't have a lot of money going into it. We had enough money to get our run started and all that, but everything we started. So I gave up my apartment. I slept on my business partner's couch for about a month or two, just knowing that I wasn't gonna be home, right? So it went from the flooring, gosh, I still look at our floor today and I can't look at it the same. I never want to move a piece of flooring ever again.
Those are giant, heavy rubber mats, by the way.
Each slimy and slippery, and they stink. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care. I was like, they're not moving, okay? But either way, I mean, we put in the time to build that thing out, and then once it's built, then you've got to learn, like we've talked about in previous episodes, all the business stuff.
Grow it.
The teaching the classes was easy. The culture for me was natural, but it was the learning the business part and knowing that at first we had 2 staff members, right? Other than, me and Michael, and then we had 2 staff members running this whole thing. As time goes on, you learn you have to bring on people, but you're still putting in that work. I mean, we put in minimum maybe 15-hour days for the first 6 months because that's what we had to do. You learn to take quick little power naps to keep you going through the day if you need it.
I can tell you, I've got a couple pictures of her sleeping on the back, so I know that.
I've really mastered the car naps real quick. But even to this day, I'm a year and a half in, and I still put in 12 hours a day. I've learned to balance myself better so I can perform, better in the times that I have. I feel like a lot of people say they're busy and all that, and they're working, 18 hours a day, but like, what are you actually doing in those 18 hours a day? Like, I feel like a lot of people make themselves busy just to say they're working 18 hours a day, but like, what are you actually doing? Like, I can genuinely say 12 hours of my day, I'm doing something that has to do with work. Right. Whether it's teaching a class, training a client, work on admin stuff, payroll, the list goes on. Like, and it's taken me a year and a half to kind of learn, like, okay, between this time and this time I'm doing this, between this time and this time I'm doing that. So you make those 12 hours or however long it is productive. Okay, it's easy to be busy, okay, but you actually need to be productive within those hours that you're putting in. And I feel like a lot of people think after, 6 months, after a year, they can start, stepping away a little bit and maybe not putting as much time in, but that's not the case. I don't plan, like, I can make time for myself now, or I can go away for a weekend if I need to, and I know my staff is going to hold down the place, but I feel like I am always working. If I'm not at the gym, I'm still doing stuff on my computer. That's, he always says, moving the needle forward. And that's something that is really stuck with me, because there's no point of doing something if it's not going to keep you moving forward, right? But it just takes work, like, and you have to know that going to a business. And I feel like the entrepreneurship thing right now is a booming thing, and everyone wants to do it because they think that they're gonna make lots of money. They have work on their own time, yada yada. To an extent, yeah, that's what you can get to, but you're not gonna get there in a year. You're not gonna probably get there in 2 years. You have to put the time in to get to that point that you want to have that freedom. And even with that, like, even when you have freedom, you're going to have your phone with you, knowing that your staff might have to call you and be like, hey, this isn't working, and they don't know how to do it. So you have to be ready for that.
You've heard this from previous episodes. I mean, all the way down from Zach on one of the first episodes, where he said this on camera, so I'm not saying anything he didn't say, but he literally missed his father's funeral because he was working too much. He has to live with it. He knows that wasn't, it's probably something he would have changed, but he did that because he's working so much. And then you heard the I've Gotta guys saying they've worked weekends, and yes, they can go pick up their kids and have a little bit of flexibility for an hour here or there, but when they have to, they got to crush it on the weekends and do that, because it just doesn't work otherwise. And then you heard Lizette just on previous episodes that'll come out here soon, talking about how she had to work 15-hour days for the first 8 years to get to a point where this second business of hers and her family's, to get it to where it needed to be. It's not like this is coincidental that there's this common theme here. It's just not the case, right? And so even myself, I've said this on previous podcasts, I literally went from a pretty plush job. My terrible territory of selling was Hawaii, Las Vegas, and Southern California. It was really shitty. To in managing people and traveling and eating, $200 dinners 3 times a week with doctors, to making a significant amount less, which I've said, and working 17-hour days for 6 days a week, and then another 6 or 7 hours on the Sunday, right? And the only reason I did 6 or 7 hours is because I had to see my wife, because I would literally leave before and get home when she was sleeping. So I would not, other than sleeping in the bed next to her, did not see her. Put a strain on the relationship, was not easy. Even though her and I were trying to be on the same page as much as possible, the reality is that reality behind doing it and it being visualized are completely different, right? And you can do your best to make it realized, but it's until you actually experience it, it's very hard.
And you can explain it to someone, your significant other, your friends, as much as you want to, but it's hard to, because they're not in that position that you're in. And the thing I let my staff know, and why I have to be hard on them sometimes, is because I'm like, look, it's like, this is all I have. Mm-hmm. I've literally put every penny that I have and every ounce of energy and everything I have into this business. So if this crashes, so do I. So I'm hard on them, and because this is it. Like, if they were to leave my business, they have something else to go to. If my business crashes, I'm screwed. Granted, could I do other things? Yes, but it's going to put me in a very crappy situation, right? So
you're a lot more invested.
Yeah, I've put everything into this, and I mean, this to me is my baby, and I feel like my motherly instincts get stronger and stronger as this big baby grows. And because I have a gym, I call it my big baby with my little babies in it. I have a lot of little babies in the big baby, and
gym mom.
I'm the gym mom, but I'm very prideful on that too, which is why people ask me all the time, like, how do you get up at 3 a.m? How do you work 12 hours or however long a day? I'm like, I just do it. Like it's not. It's like it's just.
I can't even tell you now, or just to kind of validate what she's saying. Not that it needs validation, but I know that she's posting things on Instagram at 4 a.m, you know, of whatever class she's teaching, and then I'll be there at 8 o'clock at night, and she's just leaving to this date, 18 months later, right? That doesn't mean she didn't have 2 hours to go handle whatever the hell she had to handle throughout the day, but she is literally there at 3 or 4 in the morning and at 8 at night. And if you aren't prepared to do that in any type of business, it probably isn't for you. I'll be completely honest. And there are exceptions. I'm not going to say there isn't, but for 95% of you out there, if you're ready to own a business, one, make sure, we've talked about this in previous podcasts, that you're not going to ruin your passion, because it's your passion and how it relates to your career don't always go together. She has proven it is, but there's certain people that really love being a trainer, for example, in this case, but then hated owning a gym because it just now they don't enjoy training. And then also be prepared to put that many hours in. If you're not prepared to do that, you really got to question if it's for you.
And I mean, for me, honestly, like I love teaching classes, and I've had to step away, like I said in the last episode, I've had to step away to focus on the business. I'm trying to get back into teaching more classes, and why I take on some clients, because that's almost like my sanity. That's what keeps me going all day. It might add more hours to my day, but it's good for my mind. And for me, and what I've been learning the past 6 months to a year, is that we always talk about balance and stuff, but to me it's like it's still working, but that's my passion, is training. So it helps the computer stuff and the admin stuff that I don't necessarily love. It makes that better because I'm finding that time for it. It adds on to my work day, but I'm still happy. Like, I don't mind teaching at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, I do that 3 times a week with clients. You know, and you just do it.
And so, yeah, the reality is when you own a business, you know, you're going to think, oh, I don't know if I could do that, or, you know, I'll just take off a few hours. I don't want to say you feel imprisoned, because that's probably the wrong term, but it's like, it's hard to explain. You don't really have an option. Like, I started with hardcore pretty early on. Most of the stuff wasn't there. I think I was maybe 3 or 4 months after opening.
Dumbbells?
Yeah, I think they just had dumbbells and maybe couple benches. And I can't remember all the times her and Michael were in the back, and they're, you know, taking a quick cat nap in the back, because they were probably there overnight, right, or whatever it was. And I felt their pain probably more than most, because I had at that point experienced it many years prior. But the reality is that it's one of those things where you got to ask yourself that, and then, you know, almost to a point, trial it if you could, in the sense of like commit to something for that long, irrelevant to what it is, and say, hey, honey, or, you know, husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, can we live with this type of lifestyle? And if we can it be for years? Last night, for example, I started, you know, I wake up at 4:30 or 5 every day, I work for a couple hours, go to the gym, come to work all day, go back to the gym, get some things done, and then as I'm driving home last night, I have a conversation with 2 people about my apparel business that I just started, get 2 deals on that. This is at like 9 o'clock at night. And then as I'm still driving home, I'm finishing, pull into my garage, having another phone call about possible relocation of one of our branches, and that's at 9:30 at night. And I'm literally walking in as my wife's showering, and she's trying to say hi, and I'm on the phone still working. And it's just the way it has to be. And this is, mind you, this is 10 years in. The other 2 businesses are newer, which is probably what's consuming some of that time. But it's one of those things where it doesn't just go away after you're relatively successful, or your business is doing well. There's still going to be circumstances or times where you got to put that time in, and you're going to have to accept that, right? Because you never stop working. My wife will attest to this, and we laugh about this a lot. I laugh about this a lot. Is that I am never. She goes, every single time somebody takes a picture of you, you're on your phone. You're always doing something, right? And I sent her something from Gary Vee the other day, which is a very known motivational speaker and business person and all that. And he says that if you don't respond to everybody in some capacity, if they make a comment or something on a social media type of environment, you're losing an opportunity, right? And I'm a firm believer in that too. Even if somebody likes a picture of my dog, I'll recognize the fact that they did that because they took the time to do that, right? And then I'm top of mind, so God forbid they want credit card processing, or they know somebody who owns a restaurant, or they know somebody that wants apparel, I'm their guy, right? And so you're going to want to own that as you own a business. And if you don't, again, it's just, I'm not trying to scare people away, but just realize that this isn't a bank where you just go and you're off and you're done, or Best Buy, or whatever type of job is a 9 to 5 or 6 to 2 or whatever it is. you're not going to stop working. And you think that, oh, I can separate it. And you can to an extent, but the reality is if business is there and you're turning it down, it's going to probably dig at you, right? Or things have to be done. You're going to have a hard time like letting go if you don't know things are where they need to be.
I think what I know for me personally keeps me going is just being passionate at what I do. And I mean, could I start a clothing company? Sure, but I'm not going to be super pumped about it. I'm not going to want to get up at 4 a.m. But I love training. I love helping people. I love having this gym. And there's days where I wake up going like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Like, I think I just want to go back to training clients and then I can go home and that's it, right? But then, I get the responses from our members saying, this gym's changed my life and thank you so much for what you do. And little things like that remind me of like why I'm doing what I do. So it makes the long days and the hard work that I put in worth it. But just make sure you're passionate at what you want to start, because it will make it that much easier. You're still going to struggle, but that passion is going to keep you moving forward throughout all the struggles and obstacles that you hit. Like, it'll just keep going.
And the passion doesn't necessarily have to be about, generally it's about like the specific function you're doing, if it's a product or a service or whatever it is. For me, it's actually a little bit different, and I think I've met a few people that are like that as well, where my passion is just business, like helping people in general and being motivational, but also just as business as a whole. So like I could realistically, sell this carpet to a million people and be happy with it, because it's the growth of the business and employing people and motivating people and being around that type of environment. It's not the fact that I enjoy selling carpets or cleaning restaurants or selling t-shirts. It's cool to see the designs on t-shirts, but that's not where my passion comes from. It's from like helping people, right? So the same thing with like helping Kailey at the gym. It doesn't get me like super excited to be like, oh, we just created a process on for inventory on t-shirts. But it's the fact that it works, and then it gives your employee like that ownership, and then you see their confidence build. That's what I like, right? Like, you're like, oh wow, this guy went from where he's at now to here in a year, and the amount of confidence they have is that, to me, I can't get enough of that. And that's kind of what you're talking about too, is like, even for someone like me, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair if it wasn't for Ryan that was sitting here a couple episodes ago, and Kailey and Mike. Because, a couple years ago I was 70 pounds heavier, and even though I was relatively successful with Green Guard, I wasn't anywhere close to where I am now from a motivational standpoint, and from just wanting to help people as much as I help them now and all this type of thing. And so she knows that, and I do my best to remind her of that. But those types of stories, because mine's more of a sustainable success story too, I think helps people like her, because that's where her passion is, right? And so that's where I think where you're getting at with the passion part of it. And so just find out what it is that you're passionate about, relevant to what component of it is in the business, and make sure that that'll stay with you when it comes to starting your own journey. And if it does, and you're willing to put in the time, I would say go for it. It's something it's incredible. Every day you wake up, most days when you wake up, you're like, I'm going to somewhere I love. This is especially a gym environment where there's. Most people are really happy to go to a gym every day, so it's just really cool to see that that level of engagement and desire.
The people are what make me get up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I get excited to go to work, because I don't call it really work. I'm going to the gym, but I get excited at the fact that we have so many people at the gym at 4:15 in the morning. I'm like, they motivate me. I'm like, because if I didn't wake up, if my trainers didn't wake up, that door wouldn't open, right? So we're all there because we want to be.
You understand 4:15 how early that is? I'm waking up at that point, but to physically be at the gym at 4 and doing the intensity in which hardcore fitness operates, is the fact that people are willing to do that outside the fact that they're crazy is incredible. It really is, right? And if that doesn't motivate you, I just don't know what is. It's the same thing with people that just like there's a guy, I've mentioned him 100 times, Ruben. He's up at like 3 in the morning, I think. Goes to work. He's at work at 4:30, works till 4 based on the type of, because of his profession, and then either goes home or goes straight to the gym. But if he's at home, he's maybe half an hour, gets to the gym by 6, and is there till 8:30 every night, and goes to bed at 10. And the fact that he's willing to devote that much time to your culture says something to do, with all your hard work, right? There's very few people that are going to sit there and devote that much time to a specific environment unless you've done something pretty special, right? And the reality is that that is the passion I think she's talking about. No different than for me, I see guys on Friday sitting there eating burgers together, giving each other as much shit as they possibly can, playing pool, and then I hear about how they all hung out on the weekend, right? That I brought that together, and they've got really good friends out of it, and that's cool to see, right? And for me, that's just incredible to see that people can build those relationships through all this hard work and passion.
And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah.
I mean, there are relationships that have formed within this gym that people didn't know each other before they walked into those doors, and now, I mean, we have they call it the sisterhood, right? The sisterhood is like I would say majority of the women in our gym, and they have this own little Facebook group. I think they just went to the movies the other night and had dinner, and I'm like, to me, that's so cool that started from like my business, right? All these little relationships and best friends, and I mean, we got people dating that are started from the gym, you know? I mean, that's cool. Like, and it's that stuff, that's those little reminders that make the 12-hour days, the nights where I can't sleep because I've got so much on my mind. That's what makes it worth it. It's
funny you bring that up. I just got a text yesterday from a guy, Michael, that is my brother's friend that worked here for a while, and then his now wife, Crystal, that worked for me as well. They met at Green Guard, and he texted me saying, "Hey Nate, just so you know, wanted to thank you. It's kind of a random thing, but they just had their first child, and this would have never happened if we didn't meet at Green Guard." And clearly all the effort was on their part, but the fact that they met here and that it kind of came out of that was cool to see, right? And then he took the time to mention it and all that, because I would have never ever matched them together. They didn't seem like, but they work together really well, and they have a great relationship, and they got the first child, and it's like that's super rewarding, right? And so it's incredible. And when you say about the sisterhood, that's funny, because after they had that dinner, one of the girls on the team, Yvette, was and Jill said, "Nate, just so you know, Yvette didn't have any pizza," because they went out and got pizza and called it out.
Accountability.
Yeah, it's accountability. So it's a really good culture, and it's fun. So I think the story of this is just, and I know you've heard this in other podcasts, but I want you to hear it from multiple people, so you know it's not just me being crazy work ethic, work too much Nate, which I hear plenty of. Which is perfectly fine, keep challenging me, is that it's not just me. You've heard it from multiple people that have been on my podcast, that it's an incredible amount of work, but it's also extremely fun if you're willing to do it. And you got to be passionate about it, and it's something, if you people have said this, if you think it's something you want to do, and then you start putting a business plan together, and a week later you're still really, really interested in it, and then a month later you're still really interested in it, and you haven't lost any type of desire to do it, and then 3 months have passed and you're still to that point, then you can seriously start considering it. But a lot of times people get excited about the just the sexiness of it, or the notoriety of it, or whatever it may be, and then all of a sudden they're like, holy shit, what did I get myself into, right? And so just be prepared for that thought too. But if you do, it's a fun ride. Now I would tell anybody to go for it, but just be prepared for the amount of work and frustration and fun it is.
Just be ready to put in the time, continue learning. You're never going to stop learning, just any aspect of the business. Do make time for yourself, because that's something that I did struggle with the first year and a half.
Same here.
I forgot about me, and I know well enough that if I do focus on me, or even for an hour, it's going to make everything else better. So learn, put in the work, and just keep that passion going, and it will be worth it. You'll have your ups and down days, but in all reality, I don't see myself doing anything other than what I do now. So.
Well, that was episode 12 of Startup Nation with Kailey from Hardcore Fitness. Thanks for listening in. Please, again, subscribe, share, like, all that fun stuff. YouTube is where the entire Startup Nation channel is. I'll show clips on Facebook. The full episodes are on Facebook as well. Instagram, all that fun stuff. So thanks again. Appreciate listening in, and keep kicking ass.
Keep working hard.
Thanks, guys.